Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. I'm your host, Carly, and here we break down complex issues around health, the climate crisis, and social justice through a vegan lens. We'll talk about the magic link between your well being and the planet's health, because luckily, choosing a healthier, mindful lifestyle for yourself often creates healthier vibes for our planet too. Staying consciously clueless means getting to show up knowing nothing, but staying open to all that you can learn. From feasting on plant-based meals and reducing waste to learning to meditate, every step you take contributes to your wellness and makes systematic change for the world. You can make a difference. This podcast will show you how.
All right, let's rock. Thanks for having me, Carly.
I found you through the Raven Corps and have been inspired by the work you and your comrades there have been doing for a while now. So I would love to talk a little bit about the origin story there. We also, listeners will know, we've had some other folks on the pod, or they're going to be on the pod. We'll see what order this comes out in. So let's hear a little bit more of the origin story.
Yeah, so I technically I'm a lawyer. I have a master's from Lewis and Clark in animal law, but I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer basically, and I didn't want to work on policy either. And so I was just fortunate enough that right after I finished my LLM in Portland, Oregon, I was offered a job with a small aiming education organization called Heart, and they were just like unbelievably cool about the whole thing because they were essentially just, yep, we want you to create things in Portland and we want you to be doing direct service. So I was going into schools and talking to kids about all sorts of different issues. It wasn't just animal rights. It was also environmental preservation and justice and social justice issues. And so one of the things that I did was that I started going into local high schools and facilitating animal rights clubs. And that was how I started working with teens. And in 2016, I think it was 2016, we went to the animal rights conference in Los Angeles, and it was just like there was nothing for young people. And they were super disappointed and I think really disheartened. And so we were just like, yeah, when we get back to Portland, we're going to start something. When we got back to Portland, we started Youth Animal Advocates of Portland, otherwise known as YAP. And then that evolved. And then that evolved into what became Youth for the Voiceless, a broad-based animal rights organization. And then as time went on, what I really started to notice was that the members within our club, within our little organization, they were wanting to take a much more, I think, multidimensional is the word that we use, holistic, comprehensive approach to their advocacy. We're big fans of AFCO and the book Racism is Zoological Witchcraft. If your listeners have not read it, I'd highly recommend it. And AF in that book uses the term multidimensional. So anyway, yeah, we became a collective liberation organization and we rebranded as the Raven Corps. And so all of our quote unquote members within our community are known as Ravens. And yeah, we organize campaigns, we call them operations, and we really strive to address the root causes of oppression. So mainly white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy. Yeah, that's who we are. That's how we got here.
What's the significance of the Raven?
Okay, a couple of things there. I think it's pretty obvious that I'm a little bit of a goth. I've been a goth since 15. Yeah.
I didn't know where you were going with that pause. I was like, was that a bad question? Yes. Okay. I'm on board. Yes. It's on brand is what you're saying.
It's on. Yeah. This is honestly, Carly, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I have never forgotten what it felt like to be a teenager. I don't feel like I, in a lot of ways, am 16 years old. And I think that was like just me getting involved in a youth subculture in the 1990s and specifically goth. It was huge for me. It completely changed my life. And it wasn't a phase. It really helped me develop a sense of identity and my community when I was a teen. Again, especially in the 90s, I think that was like a really special time for youth subculture. But yeah, it was just, it meant the whole world to me. And so I think I've always clung to just that sense of community and solidarity that I had as a teen with my goth community. But I think above and beyond that, it's also just like Ravens are really badass birds. They're so cool. They're so smart. And they have gotten this, like, they take a bad rap. I drew these connection because we really wanted to honor a particular animal as we rebranded from Youth for the Voiceless to what we ultimately became. We wanted to really honor a particular animal. And it's worked out really nicely because now, since we're the Raven Corps and we're operating on a decentralized model, all of our corps choose an animal that they personally identify with. So we just started to year. Yeah. So we have the Gorilla Corps, we have the Orca Corps. Orcas are basically like leading the revolution. Like they're so cool.
Truly capsizing yachts left and right.
Even down at the billionaire yachts. I'm here
Love
for
to
it.
see it.
Yes, we do. So yeah, so that's how we decided on the name. I think it was also just we really love birds and we really love that throughout mythology and stories, they carry messages. And so we really also wanted to incorporate that idea that these animals carry important messages into our communities.
It's what I found so interesting, and one of the reasons I wanted to follow along when I found you on Instagram or a post popped up or whatever it is that it felt so authentically youth-led. And I just finished up Instagram, and social media has heard me talk about this book so many times now, but I just finished reading Let This Radicalize You.
Yeah.
And in that, there's so many things to take away from that book. But one of the things that made me think about you all actually as I was reading it is there was a talk about how often youth-led movements get co-opted and end up very much so not youth-led, and that it's like a cute kind of selling point maybe in the end of, yeah, we like the kids do it, but they don't. And I remember thinking that seems so counter to how I see the Raven Corps genuinely operating, with youth really being at the helm. And it's beautiful. I wish it wasn't so unique.
I thank you so much for that, Carly, because
Mhm.
yeah, I have a lot of frustrations about how people approach this work. And I think that a lot of people oftentimes do. They misunderstand something as being youth-led when it's really youth are being served, but they're being told advocacy, or they're. I think there's a really big difference between having an organization that's run by adults, but they work with youth, versus an organization really or a community of activists being authentically youth-led. Yeah, it's from our inception, the Ravens have been making all of the major decisions. And I think one thing that's really interesting and experimental about our organization is that we really haven't hired adults for the most part. I've pretty much been the adult who works for the organization. And so I like literally have been working. Like, we have staff who are Raven aged, and we are building the organization together. They are making important decisions about policies and procedures and programs. And so it really, like, the organization, thank you. It is authentically youth-led, and that's one of the things that we're most proud of.
And you can hear that and see that in the content and the things you produce, that you're hearing the voices of the people who are being talked about, right? Usually they're talking for themselves, I guess, versus being talked about, which is really powerful. And I think is a reminder of how much power youth can and should have in terms of talking about the future. I want these people to want to take care of me.
Yes, thank you.
That's the baseline. I want more things, but also, like, from a practical standpoint, who the hell is going to take care of me? Hello?
Yeah. No, 100%. I think it's one of the things that I really love about the organization is I get to really hear from young people. That's an unusual thing, to be honest. You know, if you don't have kids or schools or whatever, then you probably have like limited contact with young people. And so I get to, on a daily basis, like hear from them, hear what they're thinking, hear what their ideas are for how our movements should be evolving and fitting. And that's really, it means a lot to me, because I think that we are headed in a better direction. I genuinely do. I'll say it 8,000 times, but I don't think that younger generations are responsible for fixing the world's problems. I think that is on all of us. But I do think that they have a really interesting perspective. And so it's an exciting thing to be able to hear from them and to give them a platform where they can really be their authentic activist selves too. Because whether we like it or not, these are the people who are taking over our movements. And they have ideas for what needs to change. So it's exciting in a lot of ways.
And it's so interesting, right, to have some sort of arbitrary societal decision of your opinions aren't really valid, and then on your 18th birthday, they suddenly are valid in the world, which is really interesting, especially if that young person hasn't been given access to all these different rich experiences that could help inform that, right? Like, all of a sudden at 18, now what I say should have some weight is really weird.
Super weird. It's super weird. Yeah, we talk about that in our community all the time because we are a very left leaning organization. We do have a variety of different, I guess, political affiliations or no political affiliation at all. But we talk about where things are headed all the time and what people would like to see. And yeah, it's fascinating because I do think that you can see where we're going in real time when you work with young people. Yeah.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And I think that it is so crucial, feels dramatic, but I'm going to say it anyway because it is. It's crucial to have all of the voices at the table, right?
Really.
It sounds so trivial to say. It sounds so duh almost, I guess, to be like, we should hear from everybody. That just feels like something that we shouldn't have to say, right? But what the Raven Corps is doing is actually saying, no, we're not just going to say that. We're going to say we should hear from everyone, and then we're going to provide a platform to make it happen.
100%. 100%. I think it is too. It's with the Raven Corps. One thing, and there are so many things that I love about us, but I do think that what we're doing here, we don't pride ourselves upon being a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. That, frankly, to us does not matter. We are a community first and foremost.
Yeah.
And we're less interested in how much we're producing and more interested in how we stick together, how we take care of each other, how do we have the greatest impact as a collective. So I think a lot of the things that like we want to see in the world, we are actually doing within our community. And that it means the world to us that we can really count on each other and rely upon one another, and that we are influencing each other's beliefs and opinions and hopes for the future, and also each other's activism. I mean, we're constantly swapping ideas, what we think does and does not work. And I super love that about us because I don't think at any point any of us really knows entirely what we're doing. I think it's constantly on this huge learning curve. And
if someone says they know exactly what they're doing, don't trust them.
oh, wait, no, for real.
I don't believe them.
Yeah.
When you were going to law school, was your intention already to work in the animal rights in activist space? Was that something that you were already hoping for?
Yeah, that's literally why I went to law school.
That was.
Yeah, I got involved in the movement because it wasn't like I was working for the University of Phoenix.
The tone your voice took.
Oh God, those were dark days, my dude. Yeah, I was like had graduated college and spent some time teaching ESL abroad, and then came back because I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I was teaching in Costa Rica, and I couldn't get health insurance, couldn't access.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty unfortunate, but I had to come back to the States and get a job right away, get an apartment, and I was like 23, 24 at the time, and which is such a weird time, right? Like
what is life?
20s. But so I got this job at the University of Phoenix online, and man, it was just a killer. It was like a cubicle farm. I had to be on the phone all day. I had something like tapping into my phone to make sure that I was doing my job. It was just,
Oh God.
it was just a nightmare. I have nothing positive to say about the University of Phoenix. But I went to lunch one day with a friend. We went to Subway, and I was just like standing behind the counter staring at the lunch meat. And it just like suddenly dawned on me that I had absolutely no clue where it came from. And so I went home. Yeah, I went home that night. I, like clear as day, remember I went home that day, and it was a Friday, and I just Googled like, where does meat come from? And a video popped up, and I watched it. It was probably like a PETA video. And and I watched it, and I was just like, oh my God. Like, how did I not know that this was happening? And went to my first protest the next week. Went vegan.
Oh wow. You were like, done with that bullshit.
But like it just something in my head it just clicked where it was just like I just can't be a part of this anymore. And so, I got like super involved with the local activist community in Phoenix, and I ultimately like I quit my job at University of Phoenix and started working at a homeless shelter for families. Like it just completely shifted my perception of what I wanted to do with my life and my career, this is true still to this day. There's not a single piece of federal legislation that actually protects animals when they're living in these hellish places. Factory farming, I think 99% of total livestock agriculture in this country. So it was just like, I was horrified by that and was like, well, fuck it, I'll go to law school. And so, yes, I went to law school very specifically to work on animal issues, and then just realized that it wasn't actually what I wanted to do, that it wasn't where I was going to have the biggest impact.
Just wasn't the work that you felt like you wanted to do by the time you were done with the degree?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was Mercy for Animals' first label intern, and that
Mm.
was a really interesting experience. But then I went out to DC and I worked with the Humane Society of the United States and their Federal Affairs Department for about 5 months. And it was just like, that was a really eye-opening experience too, because it was like we would be, I mean, that's a very well-funded organization. It's a huge organization, right? But we would be offering congressional members free lunches to hear about a bill that we were trying to push for horse slaughter or whatever. And when we would be competing with these massive lobbies that were funneling millions of dollars into campaigns. And so you just,
From the animal agriculture industry and
yeah, it was just, it was really disheartening because it was like, where do we really anticipate this going? And that's not at all to say that I have a lot of friends who work in
Mm.
politics and so it's not to say that it's a fruitless effort at all. I think just for me, it was just like, this isn't gonna fulfill me. And I don't think that I'm going to be, yeah, but I'm just not the right candidate to do this type of work. But so I got bar licensed in Chicago or in Illinois because I was living in Chicago working with
Mm.
MFA. Really liked it there. And then I moved out to Portland to do the LLM program at Lewis and Clark. They had just launched the animal law program at Lewis and Clark. And so I went out and I did that. And that took me a year and a half to complete. But that was an incredible experience because I was exclusively studying animal law. And I just met all
Wow.
of these really awesome people. And yeah, and I started volunteering for HEART, this humane education organization I went on to work for. And so it was good. It was a circuitous journey to what I'm doing now, but I'm grateful that I had the experience. I think everybody should have a background in law. Everybody should have some sort of cursory legal education because our
Mhm.
system, it's complicated and it's massively flawed. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I was
Oh,
wondering if your vegan origin story was going to have anything to do with being a part of the goth subculture, because I've heard it's interesting now talking to a few people. And when I'm saying subculture or counterculture, as a reminder, obviously I'm not naming it as it should be that. It is anything that's counter to the white, heteronormative bullshit. But that's just to
sure.
clarify. I've talked to people who are like really in the UK, they're really involved in the punk rock scene there. And they were surprised they went vegan, how punk rock and veganism felt like there was some overlap. And then I was talking to someone from the LGBTQIA or the queer community, and they were like, yeah, there's some overlap, of course, with these different people that are feeling othered or
Yes.
counterculture, that there might be some intersect. Is there anything, do you think, like that? I'm not as familiar with the goth community, I will admit, as you probably can see.
We meet up in person. We should totally go to a golf club.
Let's do it. I'm in.
They're so fun. They're so fun. Yeah, they definitely had something to do with it. I like when I got involved with goth, I went to my first goth club when I was 15, and I think it really was like it was just a moment for me walking into a goth club for the
Yeah.
first Banshees was playing. And it was just like I had just felt at home immediately. And so I
Mm.
developed a lot of friends within the community who were vegetarian and a big part of it was that like yeah, like there is to an extent anyway, like a moral code within goth. And
Mm.
yeah, and vegetarianism, I think, is definitely a big part of that. So I dabbled in vegetarianism. Like I would go vegetarian for maybe 6 months or a year, and then I would reincorporate, and start eating chicken again. Or I taught English in Japan for a year and a half, and so I started eating seafood again.
Yeah.
But it was like, I think goth had a lot to do with it. I think that just like my inner angst had a lot to do with it. I feel like I was just born with angst. Like just
I just imagine this baby being like, middle finger immediately.
yeah, like my dad loves to tell the story about how I would just walk away, my Pampers would be swishing, because I would just be like this. But she's
Hitting and I call
it was coming from someplace, and it just took me a little while to really realize that yeah, no, like there are some pretty serious problems on this planet, and I needed to be able to channel it into something. And animal rights was definitely my big introduction to that. But I'm grateful that my activism evolved into something much more multidimensional, right? I don't really consider myself an animal rights activist anymore. I think I'm more just like anti-establishment, anti-capitalism. That's where I am today. Yeah.
I read something the other day about rejecting the word activism, and there's a lot of nuance to this. I don't think it's as easy, and it's obviously not black or white, but the idea of being an activist is oftentimes people just doing work that they should be doing to support each other. Like it's looked at as this thing. Like someone the other day said, "I'm not an activist like you," and it's really flattering. I'm not trying to belittle. That compliment is very meaningful, but I'm also like, I don't know. I'm just like doing shit so people feel safe in my community, and I feel like maybe all of us should do that. And it shouldn't be activism, but it should just be like community.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that was beautifully articulated. Yeah, that's how I feel too. Yeah, yeah.
It's frustrating.
It is because I don't necessarily feel like, yeah, I don't need the label. I like feeling safe. I like feeling like my basic needs are met. I want everybody to have that. And that is very clearly not our situation, not in this country, not outside of this country. And so I want to be part of the solution. And I don't think that you need to be a quote activist to do that. Because I feel like sometimes, yeah, people like they turn away from getting more involved in things because they don't consider themselves to be activists.
Yes.
It's just a word, man.
Yeah, totally. So I want to hear about a new project that is happening with the Raven Corps, because this is something I also saw and was like, sweet treats, sweet vegan treats. I got to talk about them. More sweet. Let me clarify. Sweet vegan treats that are helping towards collective liberation. Take my money. So tell listeners about this.
Yes. Okay. So thank you for giving me the opportunity, friends, to talk about Counter Crispies. Yes. This is a project that we have been working on this. My husband and I have been working on this for almost 3 years now, actually.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's been a bit. I guess in, what was it, 2021? Or no, it would have been the start of 2022. Yeah, in 2022. We started making these awesome vegan Rice Krispie treats. My husband he's a professional vegan chef. He's got 16 years of food service industry experience. And yeah.
Not goals for me, goals for a future husband of mine. I just want to clarify.
Oh, dude, it's pathetic. I don't even make my own bowl of cereal anymore. This dude really in the food department. But we were talking one day about how we wanted to look for other avenues of funding because we're just feeling frustrated, basically.
Tricky.
But yeah, it's super tricky and there can be a lot of despair. So we were just like brainstorming ideas and it was like the Girl Scout cookie program, like how are they doing that? What are they doing there? So we did the Girl Scout cookie program and it was just, I mean, that really is, it's an astounding program how much money they raised through those cookies. And so we were like, well, we could just do something like that. Like we could just rip off the Girl Scouts. And so we were like, with the product that, we didn't want to do like a cookie or something that like there's a lot of. And it was just like, we were talking about how we really miss the Sweet and Sarah vegan Rice Krispie treats from like back in the day. And yeah, we took a look and it was just like, nobody's really selling vegan Rice Krispie treats. And so Jesse put together a recipe and we started selling them. And at that point, we were Raven Corps treats because it was still falling through the umbrella of the nonprofit. And we sold them at local places in Portland for a while. And it was really fun because we made it super programmatic. At that time, it was like we wanted to raise money, but we also really wanted to get the word out about the Ravens as advocacy. We would come out with a new flavor. It was wild. We were very ambitious with it, but every month we would come out with a different flavor and we would feature a different Raven. Yeah. So the Raven would come up with, it was super cool. So the Raven would come up with a flavor idea and then they would come up with a snappy title for it. And then there would be a particular issue that they were advocating through their crispy.
Okay, new dream unlocked is that someone gets me to flavor a treat myself and then name it after me, putting that on my to-do list.
Dude, it was so fun. And we got this stuff on our website. Like it was really, one of our Ravens, Mason, did Mason's anti-imprisonment mint. And it was a peppermint crispy. Yeah, and he was talking about the prison industrial complex.
Yes, Mason.
Yeah, it was really fun. So we did that for a year. And then last year we shifted and we just started focusing on Operation Mind Over Milk, which is our campaign to increase access to plant-based milk in U.S. schools that we've been working on for the last 3 years. And that's shifting scope right now. But yeah, so all of our Crispies were kind of advocacy vehicles for And then at the beginning of this year, we got some bad news. We lost a very significant donor at the beginning of this year. And so Jesse and I were, well, maybe now is a really good time to take this to the next level. And so we actually the intellectual property. So we purchased the recipe that Jesse had developed for the Raven Corps and the materials that we were using to make the crispy at the Raven Corps. We purchased all of that and we set it up as a for-profit entity with the goal of raising money for the Raven Corps. Because part of the problem too with just the way that nonprofit law works is that you can't sell a product full time. You can't sell a product year round. So we were running into some roadblocks with what we could do with it under the Raven Core. And so we bought that stuff and then we rebranded it as Cool Kids Snack Cakes. So that is the name. That's our company name, is Cool Kids Snack Cakes. And we have 4 different flavors. We have the OG, we have peanut butter cup, we have churro, and then we have my personal favorite, Badass Birdseed. The Badass Birdseed, this is the one that all proceeds go to the Raven Corps. And every month we do feature, or well, not every month, but every couple of months we feature a different Raven. So you can read more about their activism by visiting our website. And yeah, we're really excited about it. They're really good Crispies, and they're very much on a mission to support radical youth activism. So yeah, we're hopeful that it's a big success.
That's such a great idea, and I want to try them immediately. And I think it's I love that. I feel such a kindred spirit with you, because I love that you were like, well, I don't know, the Girl Scouts do it. Like, why don't we try? I just love that mentality of, I don't know, there's another thing that kind of works in this way. Let's see what happens. And what a great avenue, too, to find something like that you can be maybe not totally self-sufficient yet, but you can start funding that stuff, because we talked a little bit before we started recording, and nonprofits are also starting to feel like these little capitalist systems, and you're fighting for money, and it must be so frustrating to see all the amazing work like a lot of people listening are doing too, and to see it just not get funded. And so I love that you were like, whatever, let's try it. Let's try making some Crispies, because we got to do something about this.
Absolutely. This organization can't go down without a fight. And I think that even if it became a situation where we weren't as successful as we had hoped with the Crispies, or we weren't able to garner additional support, the organization will live on, because I really do, as a volunteer-based kind of a thing, because I really do believe what we're doing is, it's critical. It's good stuff, what we do here. And I think you're absolutely right, too, just in that I know so many people who are doing incredible work, and they're not, I don't want to say they're not good fundraisers, because I don't even really know what that means.
I hear you. They're not good at getting money in, whatever that is, why, or whatever reason, it's not working.
Yeah. And it's heartbreaking, right? Because people, eventually they do have to throw in the towel, because we all have to make money to survive, and it is what it is. But yeah, we have a plan, and I'm proud of us. And yeah, we'll send me some Crispies.
Heck yeah. I can't wait to share them and talk about them. And I know that I know some of my listeners are going to be interested in sweet treats. They're listening to me, so we've got some similar interests. I know they're going to be like, wait a second, Carly said something about a snack. And
Sweet treat are like what's keeping me like in the game right now, honestly. Yeah, sweet treat every single day.
100%. It's the least that we deserve. It is the least that we deserve. I will stand by that. So given all this work that you're doing, which is incredible, and also given the fact that because you're doing this work, you're very tuned in to the fact that there's a lot of work to do. It is not news to you that these systems of repression need to crumble like yesterday. Given the fact that you're doing this work and that you're in it, what do you do or try to do to take care of yourself and keep some joy and keep some hope in your life?
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you for that. I'm working on it. I'm a recreational sweeper. I think that one of my favorite amazing.
I've never heard someone say that.
Oh, yeah. It's a hobby for me. You're very serious for me.
And that's a lot of time.
I think sleep is it's one of my favorite things to talk about. I think it's so fascinating, and I love to dream. It's such a surreal experience. I don't know what I'm definitely not one of those people that dude, I had this dream last night, and then I'm going to tell you a 15-minute dream where you're just I do when people have really interesting dreams. I think it's fascinating that we go to other world, and and my mom passed away in 2019, and she visited me shortly thereafter, and I really it was her. It was definitely her. And so that's I really genuinely do take my sleep pretty seriously, but I'm heavy into 1980s nostalgia. I was born in 1981, and I don't know if I've always had a love for the era, but I don't know if it's me trying to get back to simpler time as my childhood, if it's just this is just what happens when you're in your 40s. But I am like I've been really heavy into it. And so I thrift a lot. I collect 80s memorabilia.
Mm.
And it's just, yeah, that's one of the things that I find a lot of escapism in. Like when the world gets really dark and heavy, yeah, I'll watch Can't Buy Me Love and feel a little bit of joy again.
Hey,
Slap.
it is good to know what works, right? To truly to know what does bring me a little bit of comfort tonight. What is something I can go to when I previously, it feels like a different life at this point, but I worked with survivors of sexual assault and dating violence for a few years in advocacy work. And it's always the like, you have to take your own advice sometimes. Whoops. But I would help them, which I then realized I should do. I helped survivors make either an actual physical box or a metaphorical box of their tools, of their comfort tools. Is it your movie? Is it your journal? Is it your picture of your grandpa? Is it the day you adopted your kitty? So you have that. What
Yeah.
is it that makes you smile or makes you laugh? And can you go to that box when you need it? And it sounds like you've got some things in your box.
Oh man, do I? Yeah, I love to dance to 1980s music. I love
Oh, I love to dance.
Oh, I love to dance. It's one of my all-time favorite things. I can bust a move
Oh, yeah.
anytime. Yeah.
Oh, always. I'm always ready. I can be crying and depressed and be like, oh my God, is that nice? I'm ready.
Oh, girl. Okay, yes. Sign me up for that too. I don't know. We need to go to a goth club and do like a 90s night. And yeah, like we need to get out there and
When you said that, you were like, I don't know. I was born in 81, but I'm obsessed with the 80s. I'm like, I was born in 92, and I'm like, the 90s is the best, right? So I think it's just a thing. It's a thing that happens, I guess. Maybe we are clinging to some nostalgia and comfort, but that's okay too.
it's totally okay, man. Like it's bizarre because as an anti-capitalist and somebody who is very vehement in those beliefs, like there's this game that was really popular in the 1980s, like the late 1980s, early 90s called Mall Madness. And it's just,
I never play it, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
dude, it's like a childhood monument to capitalism. But whatever, I have spent the better part of this last year looking for a functional Mall Madness. I finally fucking found one. And finally found one, dude.
Yeah.
It's on OfferUp or something. I had to drive up to Phoenix to buy it, but I was just like, yes.
Yes.
Because, yeah, it just, I don't know, man. Again, maybe it's wanting something that felt simpler. And because I feel like these days, and I certainly know that I'm not alone in this, this is incredibly heavy. It's heavy and it's dark. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know what other people are doing to take care of themselves, but I'm always looking for inspiration. People are figuring it out. Hook me up, because I'm doing my best.
This is the point where I tell you the secret formula to self-care at the end of the episode. I'm like, I'm glad you asked. This is what we've been leading to, actually. I wish I had that, but it sounds like you're actually doing a pretty good job.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you ever wish that you could be just blissfully ignorant, that you could turn off the fact that you care as much as you do?
Oh, yeah. And then I
Yeah.
feel bad for thinking that for a second, but yes, I do. I actually just had a conversation the other day with my stepdad about this. We were talking about someone who just had responded to me, this dude, of course, it's a white man. And it's dumb. It was just dumb and ignorant and whatever else. And but it was not even, you could tell this person wasn't being rude. This is just how they live their life.
Yeah.
This is just how it is rude,
Yeah.
but it's not intentional. They're just like, what? This is how I operate. And we were like, what if you just moved through the world and didn't have awareness of other people?
I don't know.
Of how your actions affected everyone? What if you weren't spiraling into anxiety, worrying about everything all the time? I didn't know that was an option. Nobody told me I could check a different box. For sure.
Dude, see, now I just want to ask you a whole bunch of questions. When did you start caring?
I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I just have to
Nice.
warn you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Just a warning. So if I had to be like, bye. But I would say my brain was blown by going to college. I grew up in small northern Minnesota, and I went to Minneapolis, St. Paul, to a small liberal arts school there, and was a sociology and women's studies major. Always loved helping people, but was just so privileged and unaware of what was going on outside of my world that wasn't have a lot of knowledge of even what to be fired up about yet.
Yeah.
And then I went there and I was just like, hey guys, does everybody else know that the world is fucked? Or are we just, what's going on though? The patriarchy sucks. It was just like all these classic, I went through so many classic women's studies phases, like women's studies major phases that people joke about of just, I don't know, all the things, right? Did you know you didn't have to shave your legs all the time? Did you guys know? Like stuff like that just started really firing me up. And then I think it really was college. I attribute a lot of that time, even though I'm in debt too. I think everyone should have access to just education like that in a way that opens your mind, because then I was like, how do I do this? And I do have a personality that's like a doer, better or for worse. Sometimes I can't stop, but I started organizing. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but I started a group at Augsburg that's my college, Augsburg Against Gender Violence, because there was no place anyone could go if they were assaulted. They'd have to go to a neighboring college. And I was like, why don't we have an organization? I'll start one. So like I was starting to do that then, but I wasn't thinking of it as anything activist related. And in Minnesota, it was during my college years was when we were getting gay marriage legalized, and I got really fired up and involved in that. And just so I think it was that time. I just was so opened up, and it slowly continued on, but it was definitely the last few years and going vegan 6 years ago. That was the domino side of effect into collective liberation, into this really, I had intersectionality, Kimberly Crenshaw, women's studies majors. I understood that on some level, but including animals and having those conversations really just the last few years, I'm just like, oh, no, burn it down. Can we burn it down and start over? Maybe that's the best option. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Dude, it totally answers my question, but yeah, I still have 8,000 more, but I know you have to go.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being on the show. I want to chat more and be friends. Thank you. It was so lovely to meet you, Claire.
Oh, lovely to meet you. You legit made my whole week, Carly. Thank you.
You made my spirit much more brighter today. I didn't come into this with a bright spirit, so I appreciate that.
Dude, for real, it helps a lot to know that people like you are out there fighting a good fight.
Same.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode of Consciously Clueless. And for that, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, tag me when you share on social media, or share this episode with others who may be interested in the topic. Any sharing truly means the world to me. Join the community at patreon.com/consciouslycarly for bonus podcast content like smoke sessions with Consciously Cannabis guests, video versions of solo episodes, monthly live calls, one-to-one support, more lifestyle content, mindfulness resources, and more. Until next time, stay consciously clueless.